We travel all over North America to get the stories, but this is where the show is put together. Well, we're at the end of another season. In the past 3 years, we've met 38 of the most famous names in sport, and not one-season wonders. People like Wayne and Nadia and Kareem, athletes who defined and in some cases redefined their sport. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Well, it has not been dull. Who else gets to play one-on-one with Kareem? Gets snookered by Cliff Thorburn and even score a goal on Don Cherry. Well, a lot of the legends have been friends of mine, but in each case, we've gotten to know the personality behind the celebrity. I'm going to have another look at some of the stories that maybe made you think or made you laugh, but they're what made these athletes truly legends. Hey, let's roll.
Make a comeback with this shot.
A lot of players that come into this locker room after winning games or losing. We're going to talk about two Hall of Famers that are winners on any team. But it's not just a show about two hockey players. It's about the relationship between these two players and between their families. A relationship which grew out of wearing this team sweater. 3 seasons earlier, they were ready to mothball him. After all, Lanny McDonald was 34, ancient in hockey years, and he just captained the botched 1986 Stanley Cup assault on the Canadiens at home in the Saddle Dome that later left him weeping in the locker room. But there would be no heartache this night. With a 1-goal grace, McDonald tore down the right flank of the Forum's ice, unleashed a well-aged wrist shot that maybe was heard, but definitely not seen, by goalie Patrick Roy to confiscate the 1989 Cup for Calgary. An entire province away, in an Orillia, Ontario roadhouse, Darryl Sittler stood mesmerized by the 6th game showdown up on the TV screen. This time the tears were his, tears of delight, stained with envy, for a Stanley Cup dream that would never be his. But he couldn't have come closer. In a sport where you're only as good as your last shift, these two players apprenticed as top-drawer rookies on a war-torn club and matured between the blue lines as Hall of Famers and the best of friends during a lifetime that was the game of hockey. What are we doing in the Hollywood Hills when we're going to do a show on the greatest running back in the history of the National Football League? Jim Brown broke records. No, he created records, and he set standards for everyone that was to follow. He went out on top. He was the most valuable player in the league. He decided that was just one of his goals. He created a new challenge for himself. He became a movie actor. He was put in unique roles and in situations where no other black had ever been permitted before. Jim Brown came to this city because this is where he worked. He stayed here because this is his home, and he fell in love with Los Angeles. Swinton, Sweet Sue Brown, floated in and out of his son's life like a memory. But young Jimmy didn't care. He had 3 generations of women raising him on St. Simon's Island in South Georgia, and he never hurt for love. What Swinton missed was not merely the growth of a boy, but the flowering of a champion, a revolutionary, a warrior. Not to mention one of football's unrivaled powers and personalities to ever storm an end zone. The heat today is unbearable. Blacks and whites are not side by side, but head to head, in racial friction sparking deadly riots that have mutilated the city of Los Angeles. Jim Brown, the activist, who cools tempers in the race-torn trenches of LA, is light years away from Jim Brown, the Manhasset High letterman who moved to Great Neck, New York as an 8-year-old with his mother, a maid in that almost pure white upper crust neighborhood of Long Island. You might remember him as an officer-turned-cowboy in Rio Conchos, or there's his controversial love scene with Raquel Welch in 100 Rifles, the first with a black man and a white woman in American movies. But you can't forget his lone wolf character alongside Lee Marvin, Charles Bronson, and Donald Sutherland in The Dirty Dozen, the most popular movie he ever starred in.
What were your highlights in the movie industry?
I had a lot of them, you know, because I went in, broke down a lot of taboos. You know, I had a movie called 100 Rifles, wherein it was financed because of my name. Burt Reynolds was the third star, Raquel Welch was the second. It was the first major love scene on American screen between a white woman and a big black guy. And America thought that was really something else. And it was fun for me because it was almost laughable, you know, because it was just a matter of me kissing her and holding her in my arms, which I thought that, my God, that's so far behind my real life, you know, because I'd kissed and held a lot of women of all colors and races.
The money wasn't bad, but the real Hollywood allure for Brown was the chance to smash taboos and infiltrate traditional white roles. But by the 70s, the barriers sprung back up. The market for blacks dissolved, and Jim Brown went out of style. And as far as he was concerned, the NFL and Hollywood were two names for the same bigot.
Thank you, Mr. Major, sir. I really do thank you for that.
And then there's the spaceman. Could he be the last of the flakes in big league sport? You know, he never really hurt anyone. He just wanted to have fun. And in a career that lasted over 18 years, it's hard to come up with only 2 or 3 stories. But let me tell you about this. Bill Lee is around. It's never dull.
Do you use marijuana on your pancakes?
No.
Do you smoke marijuana?
No.
Never smoked it in your...
Oh, yeah, I have plenty of times.
How about drugs in society right now?
I wanted to be a pharmacologist when I grew up.
All right.
And they came to me, if I grew up, and they came to me and said, do you believe in mandatory drug testing? And I said, well, I've tested most of them, but I don't think it should be mandatory.
Sanity is all relative. Hitting fungos to yourself, defending the planet, discovering the mystics during a wayward trip to the Cleveland Library was enough for people to brand him a flake. Quite the contrary. Lee insists he's not a rebel, but a traditionalist who's all for natural grass, pitchers who hit, day games, and nickel beer. Bill says he was largely misunderstood by a media that maybe wasn't ready for someone who was brutally honest and did not take the game or the business of baseball too seriously. But busing, pollution, and nuclear war were another story, and he isn't the type to just shut up and play ball.
We're here at Boston Gardens. You can almost hear the echoes of past great moments. The cheers for Coos, Bird, Bobby Orr, or Esposito. Well, this week's legend had his most successful years right here. Not as a superstar, not even as a great hockey player, but he made things happen. He became the NHL's marquee personality when hockey was used to toothless Canadians with crew cuts. With his good looks and his outlandish behavior, he became sports #1 playboy. Outsiders and fans think that he had a fantasy-like existence. But as we'll learn, the player called Turk was crying out for help. And you gotta hit rock bottom to make that comeback that's gonna save your life.
Derek Michael Sanderson figured there were 3 ways to hit pay dirt in professional sport. You either had the most talent, the most points, or you were the most colorful. Bobby Orr cornered the talent pool, Esposito hoarded the points. That left only one thing. And hockey's Dirty Harry had enough color in him to paint the NHL red. In the meantime, Boston became hockey country and incited instant celebrity. Sanderson quickly became intoxicated by the hot lights of hero worship, and slowly, his life outside Boston Gardens slipped its moorings. He traded the crew-cut, blue-collar image of the lunch pail gang for all of the trappings of a sex symbol, which threw everyone off the scent of a small-town boy.
The quadruple toe loop.
4 airborne spins in less than 0.8 of a second. If you blink, you could easily miss one of them. But if you were on hand for the 1988 World Championships in Budapest and didn't blink, then you saw Canadian skater Kurt Browning do what no other figure skater had done before him. And landing the first quad in competition was only the beginning.
He knows if he's nailed it as soon as he digs the blade in and lifts. Muscles twitch in sequence, feet cross, arms clenched tightly to the chest. He cuts across 12 feet of arena air and tries to lock onto the blur of the crowd. Funny, he doesn't fall during practice as much as, say, with the axle, but when he does, he's glad it isn't more often. Too high or too fast a flight pattern can scuttle a landing and punish the knee clean up through to the spine. But when he doesn't misfire, when he wraps up a 4-spin aerial neatly on one foot, there's no way to explain it.
The image of figure skating, male figure skaters, as being effeminate. You know? Mm-hmm. Now you probably gone the other way. You know, I mean, sometimes have the reputation of a ladies' man, if that's the right.
Who are you talking
the right
to?
term. Well, I've got people talking to me about it.
That's worse.
I didn't go out asking. I didn't go out asking them. I mean, does it not affect you? This is your sport. Does it not affect the parents bringing their kids into the sport? Do you think you've...
Well, that's deep. Well, yeah, sure. I guess it would. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, men have a beautiful baby boy, and it's getting up and it's getting stronger, and they have dreams of, you know, basketball star or, you know, hockey player. I played hockey. My son's going to play hockey, and they want to figure skate, and it doesn't fit the natural mold. And I was lucky. My dad is, I mean, literally makes a living up in the mountains, a cowboy, did pickup man, you know, in the rodeo circuit, the whole thing. So why would he want a son who figure skates? But he had an open enough mind, and, you know, I think he just, the whole world of figure skating has opened up new friends and new places for my family that would have been closed if my family would have just went, well, figure skating, what's that? So it's a hard hurdle to get over, but I don't mind it at all. I mean, I think that people love figure skating, whether they see it every day, or maybe they only watch it once a year, but a lot of people, even people who don't think figure skating's that cool, will enjoy sitting down and watching skating once in a while. And it's an attractive sport. But it's a hard stigma to get over.
As in diving or gymnastics or any other judged sport where beauty is in the eye of the beholder, Browning savors the high stakes of figure skating. It's not so much the hours or the days or even the years of training that count. Rather, it's those few minutes when skill and nerves and luck collide in a mathematical equation that can sink or lift you above the crowd. This looks like the place. It's the easiest money I ever made. Somebody turn off that sunlight. I'm looking for a guy they call the grinder.
Anybody here shoot some stick? This is my table. I own it. Rack 'em up, sausage. Bare knuckling, that's how it all started. Marathon matches in shabby back alley pool halls where he'd put his last buck, even his clothes on the line. Losing meant nowhere to sleep and nothing to wear. Not many rookies break into the business like that nowadays. But the grinder was just doing what his truant officer had told him to do years ago. Go find something and make sure you stick to it.
And so far, Cliff Thorburn has stuck to snooker quite nicely. No longer the image of seedy billiard rooms and wasted youth, it's a sport that weighs risk against gain and how hard you can squeeze your opponent. If he never chalks another cue, Thorburn has still mastered all the major tournaments, most of them twice, with a world championship crown to boot. Once the outcast child no one took seriously, Cliff Thorburn just wanted to prove that you couldn't count anyone out. After all, he's the champion in black sheep's clothing.
Cliff, do you remember any real tough old players that you competed against?
Yeah, I remember one fellow, not Minnesota Fats, Fats Donohue, and boy, were the stakes high.
You break. The kid's not bad.
Sorry, Fats.
You ever gone nose to nose with a pro wrestler? It ain't pretty. I've had root canal that was less painful, but I was never scared, even though he is a big pro football player. I had him where he wanted me all along.
This is not a pussycat. This is King Kong Mosca.
During the typical night on the job, he would spit and maul and yank the hair of his enemy. Screeching fans would abuse him, threaten his life, and slash his tires. But on a good night, others just jumped him or drenched him in beer. In daylight, he was known to dish out a stomach kick here, maybe a leg bite there, but most likely a forearm blow that would flatten you out along the line of scrimmage. And if you were lucky, your eyesight would return in time to see him dancing in victory around your battered bones. They call him Mr. Nasty, King Kong, or simply number 68. But he was just Angelo Mosca, one athlete in two different pro sports with almost identical job titles as the guy you love to hate.
Why are you laughing?
No, I'm not laughing now. Wait a minute. I'm not, this is not what, take it easy now, Angela. I don't want any problem. But wait a minute. I got a background, too. I used to wrestle in high school, and I was Blackjack Donohue. And what's your name again? Angelo. Angel Mosca?
King Kong Mosca.
Wait a minute now.
Wait a minute, something.
No, let me.
Jack, get him.
Wait a minute now. Wait a minute, Angelo.
Blackjack Donohue.
Angel
I would have
Mosca.
loved to have had a piece of you during my era because I would show you what practice is all about.
Well, the fact that I realize every single thing you've had to eat for lunch, and I cannot compete belly to belly, but nose to nose, I'm not doing bad.
You know, that nose could be fixed to look like mine, too.
I couldn't.
You know, I started laughing.
I couldn't, yeah. All right. Really?
Johnny Bauer once joked that he lied about his age so often that he really forgot how old he was. And you sure couldn't tell by watching him in the nets. The four-time Stanley Cup winning goalie dove and kicked at the puck with the reflexes of a major league rookie when he was twice that age, which just goes to show you, you should always respect your elders.
Bauer would have been just as happy to live out his playing days in minor league obscurity in Cleveland if Imlach hadn't courted him in the off-season with an offer he couldn't refuse. But it was not his first taste of the NHL. 15 successful years in the minors was peppered with a stint in New York in 1953, and 5 years later, he tended goal for Toronto throughout their dynasty years, twice picking up the Vezina. Not bad for a Depression-era kid who was too broke to buy skates and used an old mattress for pads and a bent tree branch for a stick. He was happy to practice and play every game like it was the 2-minute warning, no matter how much abuse he took during his 17 NHL seasons. But he was no worse for the wear. And unlike Sorchak, Bauer never let the game crawl under his skin. By 1979, after 22 years and 1,012 goals, 666 in the NHL alone, the hockey godsend from Point Anne had had enough. Checkers had always stuck to him like Velcro, but at 39, it was getting tougher to swat them off and sink the puck. Besides, the grind of being coach, player, and publicist had sapped his strength, as did his divorce from his second wife, Joan, who reared their 5 children while Bobby made his hockey rounds. But even in his absence, Bobby swayed his sons, most notably Brett, the St. Louis Blues star who inherited the scoring title, making the Hulls the only father-son inscription on the Hart Trophy.
Away from the ice, there's always the innuendo. Bobby and his wives and the problems and his kids. What's your side of that, sir?
I know that over the years I've had a falling out with Brett and Bob and Blake and Bart and Michelle's mother, and of course, being in the public eye, it becomes escalated, it becomes blown up, and back then, knowing what I know now, of course, it would have been done in a more amicable way. And
are you working on it with the kids, do you?
Oh, I see that oldest boy of mine, he calls and bends my ear, and he wants to do this and wants to do that, and I was with Blake down in St. Louis here earlier this year, and of course, every time I'm around in the Toronto area when Brett's in town, I get to see him play, and I even go to Chicago and make sure that my business appointments coincide with when the St. Louis Blues are in Chicago and watch them play. But the kids have, despite their old man, they've done very well. They've all been a credit, and I hope will continue to be so.
Sometimes a show just blows you away. Secret police, kidnapping, threats, abuse, extortion. Sounds like a novel or a movie. Add a teenager. The backdrop of the Olympic Games, we have the incredible saga of Nadia Comaneci, the first perfect gymnast.
She thought there was nothing particularly unusual about the competition in Montreal on a July night in 1976. It was just one more tournament where she would execute the same moves she had rehearsed tens of thousands of times earlier. But before leaving the converted hockey arena on St. Catherine Street for the last time, Nadia Elena Comaneci would shatter the standards of sport by defining perfection and redefining the course of world gymnastics. 10 is the consummate gymnastic score, signifying purity of form, innovation, and artistry, unblemished in any way. This marked Comaneci's Olympic debut that was not, as some presumed, a momentary flash of brilliance by a 14-year-old member of a budding gymnastic power. It was a product of a monotonous athletic grind and a knack for acrobatics that surfaced at a mere 3 years of age. Prior to the fall of the Ceausescu regime in 1989, Nadia was exploited and abused by the Romanian presidential family, forcing her to abandon her family and flee the country. Blinded by her suffering, Nadia accepted the help of a fellow Romanian by the name of Panache. But instead of a safe refuge, Nadia fell victim to more abuse by Panache, who seized all her money and locked her in a hotel room, convincing her of a possible assassination by Romanian secret police. It was Alexandru Stefano and his wife Martine from Montreal who heard of Nadia's dilemma, retrieved and returned her to Montreal, where she now lives and works, and where one day she plans to bring her own family. There's a new sheriff in town. Blackjack Donohue's the name. And I don't take too kindly to folks laughing at my poncho. I hear there's one fella been cutting down my color scheme. That's one man who's begging for a new part in his hair. Yep, fate's gonna get even with him. I've been waiting for a long time for this, Connors. You and I are gonna have a shootout, cowboy. Brooklyn-born Kevin Joseph Connors first drew rave reviews, not in front of any camera, but on the field. As a teenager, his playground exploits on the field, the court, and on the diamond earned him an assortment of high school scholarships, and he landed at Brooklyn's Adelphi Academy. A hotshot triple sport prospect at graduation, Connors was showered with college offers. But he shifted gears and he signed with the Dodgers Class D club in Arkansas for $65 a month in 1940.
The New York Yankees, the Celtics, and the Brooklyn Dodgers. I mean, how
and the Cubs.
And the Cubs, I forgot my
The best of all, the Montreal Royals.
All right, that's the one we want to get to.
1948.
One of your buddies was Tommy Lasorda at one time. Tommy talks and writes about you regularly, about how let me see, how fair and honest you are about how the umpires handle the game.
Oh, yeah.
On balls and strikes. Is that?
That was not true.
No, I know that.
No, the umpires and the referees and officials, I mean, I know they mean well, but I've never gotten along with them. No. Never.
They're necessary.
I remember one time in Montreal, Augie Donatelli, that's a pretty big umpire's name, he died now. He was never a good umpire for Montreal. That was my opinion. Of course, my opinion was prejudiced, but I remember one time, I'm up at the plate, and he calls a pitch way out here a strike. And I turn around to him, I say, and who would Fardell's bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, some undiscovered country. He says, what are you doing? I said, I'm reciting Shakespeare at you. He says, but you just struck out.
You can see Chuck Connors, the actor, almost anywhere. He's always popping up on the small screen, in Rifleman reruns, in movies of the week. But who you can no longer see is Chuck Connors, the athlete, the high school and college multi-sport sensation. The professional first baseman and Celtic forward who doubled in big league sports, but you can picture the athlete from the man. A larger-than-life presence who took his childhood talent and ran with it. A true star of stage and screen. But his stage was the ballpark, and his screen success all began with a ball, a bat, and a glove.
I've spent all my life in sport. Sometimes you think you've seen it all. The joy, the pain, and the people who give you both. We've been with athletes and coaches who have taken different routes to the top. No two of them the same way. They say sport develops character. I'm not sure of that. I know sport develops characters. And we've had the wildest, toughest, wackiest, and most talented characters you'll ever meet. And I hope you enjoyed meeting them as much as I have.
Across North America or halfway around the world, with 3 classes of in-flight service, Air Canada goes above and beyond to serve you better.